Madam Speaker, the COVID-19 Projects Development Fund, now known as the Projects Development Fund, was set up on 28 April 2020 as a special fund by way of regulations made under the Finance and Audit Act. The fund is administered and managed by the Projects Development Committee. Madam Speaker, I am informed that the Projects Development Committee had invested a total amount of 3 billion rupees in Silverbank Limited in 2022 and not in 2023 as mentioned in the PQ. The investments were made on 3 occasions as follows. A, first, 500 million rupees in April 2022. Second, 500 million rupees in August 2022. And third, 2 billion rupees in September 2022. At that time, the committee was chaired by the former Financial Secretary and comprised representatives of the Prime Minister's Office, Ministry of Finance, and the Bank of Mauritius. The committee also comprised the Accountant General, an officer from the Attorney General's Office, a former advisor of the Ministry of Finance, as well as 3 representatives from the private sector. All these investments were made following the approval of the then Minister of Finance as provided for in the Finance and Audit Act and the Finance and Audit Projects Development Fund Amendment Regulations 2020. Madam Speaker, all these investments were made despite the former Minister of Finance being aware that the Silverbank had the following systemic issues. First, the Silverbank was a newly constituted bank, being given that on 11th June 2021, the board of the Bank of Mauritius approved the acquisition of the shares on Banyan Tree Bank by the shareholders of Silverbank. The Banyan Tree Bank was itself a problematic bank. Second, the Silverbank had, at its inception, a shareholding structure not in conformity with the provisions of the Banking Act 2004, which stipulates that no single shareholder should hold more than 10% of shares in a bank, except with a prior approval of the Bank of Mauritius. In fact, approval for a 75% shareholding to a single shareholder, in this case, Ginny Gupta, was given by the Bank of Mauritius, and this tantamount to endangering existing and future depositors. And third, Silverbank had difficulties in appointing an external auditor to perform the mandatory auditing of its accounts. Madam Speaker, again, we must highlight the weakness in the supervisory role of the former management of the Bank of Mauritius. The representative of the Bank of Mauritius on the Projects Development Committee intimated that investment in Silverbank at that time was safe, as it was being supervised by the Bank of Mauritius. Despite knowing all these systemic issues, the former Minister of Finance gave his approval for these massive investments of public funds into such an ailing bank. With the unfolding of all the facts today, it is clear that this was a wrong decision to invest public funds in such a bank. Madam Speaker, let me come to the process for investing 3 billion rupees into the Silverbank Limited. With regard to the first investment of 500 million rupees, on 5th April 2022, the Projects Development Committee received an investment offer from Silverbank Limited through the Ministry of Finance for its consideration. On 6 April 2022, the committee sought quotations from 4 other commercial banks. Quotations were received from 2 banks, namely State Bank, Mauritius Limited, SBM, and Bank One Limited. On the basis of an evaluation of the quotations made by the Projects Development Committee and taking into account the offer from Silverbank Limited, the Projects Development Committee agreed to invest 2.5 billion rupees as follows. 500 million rupees in Silverbank Limited, 1 billion at SBM, and 1 billion at Bank One. The approval of the then Minister of Finance was accordingly sought and obtained for the investments. As regards the second investment of 500 million rupees, on 11th August 2022, the Projects Development Committee received another offer from Silverbank Limited through the Ministry of Finance. The committee invested 500 million rupees directly into Silverbank Limited after seeking and obtaining the approval of the then Minister of Finance. Concerning the third investment of 2 billion rupees, on 31st August 2022, the Projects Development Committee sought quotations from various commercial banks. Quotations were received from 6 commercial banks, including Silverbank Limited. On the basis of an evaluation exercise, the committee invested 2 billion rupees in Silverbank Limited, again after having sought and obtained the approval of the then Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, out of the 3 billion rupees invested in the Silverbank Limited, 500 million rupees are still outstanding, and there is no certainty of its recovery. It is regrettable that the decision to invest so much of taxpayers' money was made only on the basis of higher returns, without any consideration at all of the risk involved. Madam Speaker, basic principles of portfolio investment stipulates that investment decisions must consider both returns and risks. Clearly, the risks associated with the investments in Silverbank Limited were prohibitively high. It is incomprehensible that such investments were made, and with the support of the protégé of the previous regime at the Bank of Mauritius. There is definitely anguille sous roche. The Financial Crimes Commission is currently investigating into this whole financial scam.
Yes, good.